Well, good morning, everyone. And once again, welcome to another week of some interesting things I think you'll find. So welcome with us this morning. I'll say hello to a few people. Michael, Annette, John, good morning to you. And Pam and Judy, hope you guys are having a great day. And even John's wife, Janet, is listening this morning. Okay. Sherry, Jerry, Susan, good morning. Another Jerry, good morning. Marin, nice to have you on with us this morning. Jeanette, from our staff, and Connie, good morning. Maria, and Madeline, and Diane and Vera, good morning to you guys. Okay, great to have you on with us this morning. Nick from our staff, Blanca, and you guys are great. Okay, let's get going and I'll come on afterwards and say hello to you, Sherry and Louise and Bob. Okay, here we go. I want to read the headline. Actually, it was two headlines. And I want to read both of them, okay? And so these two studies came in last week. And so we'll blend them together this morning, okay? Two studies came in, and listen to the headlines, okay? This is the headline of the study. First headline: America's most widely used cooking oil causes genetic changes in the brain. Okay, let me repeat it. America's most widely used cooking oil causes genetic changes in the brain. Okay, so that's the first headline, and let me go to the second one here. There's an association of insulin resistance with depression. There's an association of insulin resistance with depression. Okay, so let me go back to the first study. I'm going to give you a little bit of detail, okay, on that. And America's most widely used cooking oil. What do you think that is? What is America's most widely used cooking oil? In Canada, it probably is the same, although we have a different, one of our oils that we use for cooking, a little bit different in the United States, I believe, okay? I got to look that up, but I think I might be right. Two different oils do the same thing, by the way, okay? So in the United States, America's most widely used cooking oil is what? Soybean oil. And in Canada, canola. Now, by the way, I don't know if you knew this or not, but canola, the reason that they pronounced it, it's one of our big, in Canada, it's one of our big exports, by the way, is canola. Canola oil, Canada. Yeah, it was named after Canada, canola oil. Now, let me just say this about these two oils. These two oils, canola oil and soybean oil, which is the number one oil used in packaged goods and cooking in the United States. So when you get deep fried, you go to a fast food outlet, either at McDonald's or Wendy's or whatever, what are they frying that food in? In the United States, it's soybean oil. In Canada, it's canola oil. Two peas in the pod. They're both not good for you. And we've been saying this a long time because what those two oils do, they increase your silent inflammation in your body big time. Okay? Big time. So let me break it down a little bit because I want to tell you what the study said, okay? So soybean oil affects mostly one area of your brain. Soybean oil affects, this is what the study said, the hypothalamus. Okay, so now you guys know this, so I'm going to repeat my method of teaching, repetition. Okay, it's the glue. Repetition is the glue, so you don't forget. Now the brain, it's very complicated. There's a lot in there. But for the sake of making it simple, really, you've got two major areas in the brain. One is your hypothalamus, and the other one is your hippocampus. Now your hippocampus, you guys know that. That's your memory center in your brain. Campus. Now the hypothalamus, this is where your metabolism is. This is where your body temperature, this is why when you affect the hypothalamus, you're affecting your thyroid gland, because the thyroid's a puppet. The thyroid doesn't work on its own. The thyroid doesn't do anything on its own. The thyroid waits. So does your adrenals. Your thyroid doesn't, let me just produce TSH. No, it doesn't do that. It waits for headquarters, and more specifically, the hypothalamus, because the hypothalamus will send signals down to the pituitary in the brain and say, okay, you need to secrete some thyroid hormones. So when you mess up your hypothalamus, think about it. When you mess up your hypothalamus, ladies, you should understand this better than anyone else. You're messing up your metabolism. It's one of the reasons that we see so much obesity today. The hypothalamus is messed up. One of the reasons it gets messed up, a big reason, is because of the oils we are using to cook with and the food industry uses to make packaged goods. I use this illustration so that you would understand it. Peanut butter. Vitamin P on the hit parade, and the reason it's because I like it. Okay? I do. I like peanut butter. Now, there's two types. There's one that you never have to refrigerate. It'll last forever. Why is that? Because it's made with, we call them crappy oils, but they are hydrogenated oils. They're made in a factory. They're called seed oils. One of the biggest things they do, according to the study, is it affects your metabolism by changing some of the genetics within your brain, more specifically the hypothalamus. Think how significant that is. I'm going to tie this up in a second, but I just want to bring you some teaching. Now, the other thing that it does, and this is well established, these oils, from crackers to peanut butter, the middle aisles of your grocery store, don't fool yourself. These are poisonous oils. The problem with this poison, it don't kill you right away. It takes time. But now they're showing these oils affect the brain. Another thing that's well established, it elevates your omega-6, your linoleic acid, compared to your omega-3. Now, your body is made to be in balance between omega-6 and omega-3. But the vast majority of people in North America have a ratio somewhere between 20 and 30 to 1 ratio, omega-6 to omega-3. What that does, it creates an enormous amount of inflammation. Now, we've talked about this. Inflammation is not Houdini. It doesn't just show up. There's a reason for inflammation. One of the biggest reasons in inflammation is this imbalance between omega-6 and omega-3. That's why, you know me, I'm so big on omega-3. We just never get enough of it. You should take enough omega-3, especially DHA, slide out of rooms. Oil. But the right type of oil. So, I was in the grocery store the other day, and I probably take too much time in the grocery store because I'm always looking at labels and I'm looking at what they're selling, and I don't want to be negative, but it's amazing to me. This is just by the way. It's amazing to me that people in the grocery stores are wearing their masks. So do I. But then they got a boatload in their grocery carts of these omega-6s, from chips to actually buying the cooking oil so that they can use it to cook. And then they got all these things from the middle, from cookies to crackers to peanut butter, that's got these hydrogenated oils, and then they got a mask on. I feel like going over to them and saying, you know what's more dangerous? Not the virus. What's in your cart? Now, I don't do it, but I feel like doing it. I wouldn't be very popular if I started doing that in the grocery stores. But I feel like screaming. I feel like screaming. Nobody is talking to us through this pandemic. Nobody is talking about food. They're not talking about food. They're talking about wearing your mask, and it'll never go back to normal. Oh, I don't want to get sidetracked, but I just wanted to, so this particular oil, soybean, #1 in the United States. I'm pretty sure canola oil is #1 in Canada. Now, it may be soybean oil too. Terrible stuff. Terrible stuff. It affects the brain. It affects specifically the hypothalamus. Now, let me just read to you. I'm going to read to you one of the things that it does in the hypothalamus, okay? One gene is your love hormone. And this is where I'm going to connect the stories here. One gene that it affects is your love hormone called oxytocin. Now, not oxycontin. Oxycontin. It's oxytocin, but that's your feel-good hormone. It's one of your feel-good hormones in your brain. So the study is saying that America's most widely used cooking oil causes genetic changes that what? Leads, according to the study, to depression. leads to depression. Because it starts to play with these feel-good hormones in the brain. Interesting, isn't it? Never mind that it plays with the hypothalamus and plays with your metabolism and plays with your thyroid. And your thyroid is off and you can't figure out why. You got all the symptoms of your thyroid being off, and yet, you just can't rely on blood tests for thyroid. Now, I'm not saying don't get blood tests. I'm just telling you, you got to look at symptoms. Symptoms always trump blood work. Medicine has made a huge mistake, in my opinion, by relying on the lab. Now, the lab is good. It's a tool. It ought to be a tool in a doctor's toolbox, for sure. But it shouldn't be the only tool in the toolbox. And that, I've talked about this in the past. That bugs me. We're never looking at anything holistically anymore. We have specialists in every area. We have psychiatrists. We have a whole area of medicine. But they don't, generally, they don't even talk nutrition. They don't talk about food. And food is medicine. It can be bad medicine or good medicine. But food is medicine, guys. It's amazing what happens when you clean up the diet. And this is one of the things this is one of my objectives in the reset. My objective, one of the biggest things of the objective in the reset, of course, it was to fix your insulin and all that. Sure, absolutely. But one of the biggest areas I was aiming at was the brain. Because when you get off these crappy oils, you get off look, guys, if you're going to cook potatoes in oil, use olive oil. Don't use crappy oils at any time. They should be never in your house. And that's the problem. Even peanut oil. I know we use a real good oil. It's peanut oil. No, it's not. It's not a good oil. It's very high in omega-6. You want to get away from those oils. And this is one of the things the reset does. That's why people feel so much better. So this oil in the first study, and these linoleic acids, fatty acids, omega-6 fatty acids, they affect your brain. And that's why we see so much, one of the reasons we see so much depression today. Now, the other thing, and I'm going to say it because this is well established. This study is new, but there's been many studies showing that these oils affect your gut because they affect the microbiome in your gut. And they can create leaky gut. Leaky gut, leaky brain. Isn't that interesting, huh? Now, we know that these oils, one of the biggest things that these oils do is how they affect your blood vessels. Because again, the bad guy has always been made out to be cholesterol, but cholesterol is not the bad guy in your body. And the other day we talked about LDL. Because people always ask me, what about my LDL, Doc? How come you never talk about LDL? Because I don't care. No, it's you know how I just broke the brain down into two parts? Now, your brain's more complicated than that, but if you get those two, most things that ever happen in your brain will be in those two areas. Hypothalamus, think of hormones, think of your thyroid, think of your adrenal, and think of stress, and think of all that. And then think of your hippocampus, think of your memory. And this is why in Alzheimer's we talk about the memory center of the brain that gets affected. Not only by these oils, but by insulin. But we'll talk about that probably not today, tomorrow. Because there was another study that came out that I introduced to you. But I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on that, I think, tomorrow. Now, what happens inside your blood vessels with omega-6 oils? When your ratio is really high, omega-6 to omega-3, like I said, in average, 20, 30 to 1 in North America. 20 or 30 to 1. And remember, this is a new phenomenon. This is in the last 80 years or so. Because these seed oils, they're called seed oils. They came originally from the cotton seed. And they realized that these things were very inexpensive, number one. You know, when man gets a hold of nature, it's not always good. I've talked to you about how man changes flour, made bread a fast food. Man changes fat. Instead of using butter and lard and ghee, I don't know how you guys pronounce it. They used margarine. And these oils. When man gets a hold of stuff, sometimes not always good. Man's pretty smart. Man is smart. But they like to change things that become very, very cheap, and they can make a lot of money. I've talked to you a million times, close to it, about high fructose corn syrup. See, that's a syrup that's made in the lab. It's not in nature. So man changes something and they go, oh, look at how inexpensive this is. And it's very, very sweet, except it ain't sweet for your body, guys. So this oil inside of your blood vessels is damaging because it creates inflammation at a high ratio to omega-3. And that damages the Teflon layer, just like sugar does. And usually with these packaged goods, they're full of sugar too. Can you imagine the double whammo you're getting? It affects the blood vessels. That can give you small vessel disease of your brain. That can be a big factor in Alzheimer's. But let me just spend a minute or two on depression. Imagine getting at the brain and affecting your mood. Affecting your mood. See, it affects the hypothalamus. It can affect your mood. Not only your metabolism, but your mood. Because you're not even secreting this feel-good hormone. You feel down. Food is medicine, guys. Either good or bad. So if I can appeal to you, if I can appeal to you, cut out the crappy carbs. Cut them out. Packaged goods. Change your peanut butter. Go to natural. Not only no sugar added, icing sugar, but no hydrogenated oil that make it last forever. Yeah, this is what happens, guys. This is what happens. So, interesting, isn't it? Interesting studies. Okay, now, let me just see if there was anything else that they said. Of course, they said these oils promote insulin resistance. And I want to bring that to you tomorrow. We'll talk about insulin and how it has a major effect on the brain and your moods. And remember, the second headline is the association of insulin resistance with depression. Here's what I've said. If only we had a drug for depression. Okay? If only we had a drug for depression. We do. It's called food. It's not Prozac. I remember when these antidepressants came out in the 70s. And I remember. And they're probably still on the label. This is to be used for a short period of time to get you through a dark place in your life. Don't use past. And I've known many patients over the years, many patients. I mean thousands of patients over the years that were on antidepressants for 20, 30 years. It wasn't meant to be. And they get hooked. And the biggest solution is to look inside the body and look at hormones and look. You know, I was talking yesterday with Rosie, and we were just talking about the metabolic mess that, you know, I would actually, it was a lady that was having all sorts of issues. And I said, well, that's a metabolic storm. It's a metabolic storm. It revolutionized my practice. It did. My practice wasn't like that in the 70s and 80s even. You know, like I saw chronic fatigue syndrome and this and that, especially in the mid 80s and late 80s, and saw lots of them. But we didn't know much about, you know, the way hormones today with leaky gut, and we didn't know like what we do know today about what insulin does, and like we understood it, but now today it's like night and day. And then you look like at a condition like depression, you'd think, well, if you know, we would have a handle on depression. No, we don't. We don't have a handle on depression. We don't have a handle on anxiety. It's worse than ever. And what is the thing that bothers me probably more than anything else about this whole thing about COVID is doctors are not holistic. You have the public health doctors, infectious disease. They're running everything. They're running everything. They're running the government. And they keep it, you know, extending it. Guys, do you ever think we're going to get rid of viruses? Do you ever think that you're going to get rid of coronavirus? Even with a vaccine? You're not going to get rid of it. Viruses are part of our life. Oh, Dr. Martin, we got the flu shot. Did it get rid of it? Did the flu shot get rid of the flu? No. Well, maybe this year. Nobody's talking about the flu. But every year you got the flu. Have you ever had a cold? They've never found medication to get rid of the cold. No, but it bugs me because you get all these people that are depressed, people committing suicide, overdosing, because medicine's not looking at this holistically. You got to look at all of society and look at all of it. And the cost of what's going to happen with depression and, kids wearing masks in school and all that. I don't get it. And nobody's talking about let's build our immune system. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked, but no wonder we're so depressed. I don't have a depressed bone in my body. Okay? I don't. I'm an optimist. I really am. It's hard to get me down. It is. It's hard to get me down because I'm optimistic. But ooh, I get my blood pressure goes up. And I got to be careful because I become hypercritical. But anyway. Okay, so tomorrow we'll look at, so today we looked at seed oils, vegetable oils. They're not vegetables. Canola is not a vegetable. Soybean oil is not a vegetable oil. It really isn't. They named it a vegetable oil, but they're the farthest thing from vegetables. They're terrible for you. Okay. Now, Friday, question and answer. Thursday, probably in the afternoon. Okay, we're just trying once a week to do one at a different time. We'll keep you updated on that. Get your friends and family to join the Martin Clinic Facebook group, our private group, okay? And we love having you, and we love the communication between all the members, okay? We really like that, okay? And if you we'll have an announcement about the book. We sold out, by the way. We sold out our first tranche of the Metabolic Reset book. But we've been promised in the new year that we will have a whole, because of COVID, it's been a terrible thing in terms of the book industry. And so anyway, that's coming again, okay? But we thank you again for the massive sale of books that we had. Like we thought we had enough. We said, oh, that'll last us into the new year. It didn't, okay? And that's because of you guys. Thank you very much. We appreciate it, okay? So let's talk soon. Love you guys.